Okay. All right. Well, thanks again for joining today's webinar. I know there's many ways you could be spending your lunch hour or the beginning of your day here, so I appreciate you spending your time with me. My name is Ruben Singh. I'm the founder and CEO of OneTen Consulting. I have been in the CRM space for about 20 years and in the nonprofit sector for roughly 10 years. I've had the very fortunate opportunity to work with some large organizations and very impactful organizations here in the US. And my reason for starting up my own consulting practice is really twofold. The first is I really wanted the ability to look at solving problems for mission-based organizations and nonprofit organizations more holistically. So not just really looking at the technology piece alone, but really how the technology, the people, the process all work together. Because as I've learned, if one of those components is not aligned, the whole thing falls apart. So really looking at things more holistically is the approach that we take. And also really wanted to take a lot of these learnings to some of the smaller and medium-sized nonprofits who, in my opinion, are oftentimes delivering just as much impact. So those are two of some of the objectives of what we do at OneTen. Today's webinar, the structure of this is I'm going to run through about 10 recommendations or so of some of the things that we've learned and how best to prepare for your Salesforce implementation. I would encourage you to, if you have any questions or comments or agree, disagree, feel free to drop it in the chat. I'm going to, midway or so, or just take a look at those comments in the chat and address those. And then towards the end, I will open it up for Q&A or address any or discussion or any other comments that folks might have. So I'll try to go through these 10 recommendations as quick as possible so we can open that up for discussion. So preparing for your Salesforce implementation, the first thought here is, why Salesforce? At OneTen Consulting, the vast majority of our work is with Salesforce, but we are product agnostic and we do implementations of other tools, whether it is Neon CRM, Funly CRM, or others, because we do believe that Salesforce is not for everybody. I'll just say it. If there are some organizations out there that are smaller and really don't have the ability to invest time and resources in someone in Salesforce or preparing for it or training for it, and really just wants a system that they can turn on, plug and play, it collects donations, run an occasional report, yeah, Salesforce is probably not for you. There's plenty of other tools that are out there that might be a better fit. However, if you are looking into a tool that you want to configure, you want to customize to look and feel and have the terminology that you want, have the functionality that you want, and something that can scale and evolve along with your nonprofit, and you're willing to invest some time and resources in it, Salesforce can be an extremely powerful tool. The three reasons why I think Salesforce, and when I say Salesforce, I'm also assuming here that we're talking about the Nonprofit Success Pack, which is the app that sits on top of Salesforce, that is at no extra charge, that gives the nonprofit look and feel, part of the Nonprofit Cloud Suite. And so the three things that I think are what makes it such a powerful tool for nonprofits, first of all, is the Power of Us program, which does provide 10 donated licenses to all 501c3 nonprofits. I would not say that this should be your reason for going with Salesforce, because as a cost-saving measure, because with everything else, third-party apps, some consultant fees, so on and so forth, the cost will the total cost of ownership would probably be not much different as other subscription-based apps. But it doesn't hurt that those 10 donated licenses are definitely a very generous program. The second is the Salesforce App Exchange. It is just like an iTunes store. It really is a host of apps, hundreds, if not thousands of apps that you can use to extend or enable your Salesforce system. So if enhance, I should say extend or enhance your Salesforce system. So if you're not crazy about the way Salesforce native functionality does thank you letters and printing them out, there is like 5 different apps that you can choose from on the Salesforce App Exchange. Some of them are paid, some of them are free. They all have their plus and minuses to it. But this is really where the innovators around Salesforce and the community get involved to develop products that can, again, extend and enhance your Salesforce experience. And then the third reason that I think is very powerful is the community itself. There is a huge community, most of whom contribute to the Power of Us Hub, which is a forum in which nonprofit users of Salesforce and PSP are communicating every day about best practices, things they learn, things they like, things they don't like, apps they don't like, and they also vote on features that they want to see in the system. And Salesforce really leverages that communication in determining what their roadmap's going to be. So all these three things are reasons that I think Salesforce is a very powerful tool for nonprofits. So let's jump right into our recommendations. Again, these are 10 recommendations based on what we've learned. There's many, and you could probably have a separate webinar on each of these, but I'll try to summarize it best I can. The very first one is set realistic expectations. I will say that if your only exposure to Salesforce has been marketing videos or a presentation you saw at Dreamforce, I'm sorry to say you will be sadly disappointed when you implement or when you first have Salesforce installed. Not to say that those marketing videos aren't true, but it's a journey to get there. It takes configuration, it takes customization, it takes training, it takes third-party applications, integrations. So it's definitely possible to reach this end goal that you see in the marketing videos, but just know that the out-of-the-box solution is much simpler. And that's what you'd be starting with, and that's your starting point. So I encourage folks to, even before any implementations start, take a look at some of the recorded demos online. I do demos all the time for Nonprofit Success Pack, at no cost. I definitely want all the people I work with to be very comfortable with what they're getting into before they do it. And then there's also the Trailhead tool, which is the free Salesforce training tool. Again, it walks you through several videos of how individual functionality works and gives you some hands-on experience. And then, of course, there's the 30-day trial. Any of you can go ahead and log in. You can Google, Salesforce NPSP trial, and you can get a 30-day trial, which allows you to start, pointing and clicking and getting comfortable with the system. It's very imperative that not only yourself as a project sponsor or project manager, but also others on your team are very comfortable with what the expectation is. Oftentimes I hear, oh, well, my old system was much better. It did much better at batch management. It did much better with, it did much better with, let's say, thank you letters, printing out thank you letters. And that's true. Yeah, there are other systems that are better at that. But I would also say every system specializes in certain things and has trade-offs. So, if batch management and a direct mail program is what you have, then you should explore your options there. But really going in with clear expectations is critical. Especially organizations that come in from spreadsheets and they say, oh, this is a lot of clicking. It takes a lot to get a donation in the system. Oh, it sure does. It definitely does compared to a spreadsheet. It is a relational database. And so it may take 3, 4, 5 clicks to enter a donation. But that also means that you have the ability to do the reporting and the dashboarding and the visualizations that you need that a relational database offers. So definitely trade-offs, and it's always good to know those realistic expectations up front. The second one is setting clear success criteria. So always have your end game in mind. And whatever that might be I want to migrate all my data over, but I want to be able to get these 10 insights that I don't have now. I want to be able to know what my projected giving is through my workplace giving program over the next 3 to 4 years. I want more visibility to pledge payments and not just be reactive and see payments come in. I want to have this particular capability that I never had before, or I want to remove this manual process that I'm doing right now. It's really important that your team really think through what is the end goal here. What is the success criteria that we can all at the end of the day say we were successful in this, and make sure that you notify your consultants up front, or even salespeople up front, if that's the route that you're going. So there's no surprises. You don't want to invest a ton of time only to find out that you can't do the simple things that you asked to do at the very beginning of the project. For me personally, this is the most important thing, because I don't really claim victory once Salesforce is implemented, nor do I claim victory because we're on time and on budget. All those things are important, but at the same time, I want to make sure that we have addressed each of those things that were important to you when you decided to go down this path. So having clear success criteria in mind well before the implementation begins, and notifying your project team so that everyone is aware of it and everyone has that end goal there is critical. All right. Moving on to the third recommendation is reevaluating and fixing your business processes. Quick story here. I worked with one organization that used to code donations in a certain way. And it was to the point where they could not use any online donation portal because they said, oh, no, we don't want the system. We don't want the donations to flow directly in the system. We have to code them first before they go in. And which, okay, I get that. I've seen it all. But as I started looking at reports and I started looking at their dashboards, I realized that I couldn't see this code anywhere. So I asked them, well, what exactly are you coding here, and why do you need it? And long story short, as we started peeling back the onion, we realized that it wasn't really for any purpose. It was what the previous development coordinator was using simply for a presentation, a pie chart they were building for a board meeting. And it was a temporary thing that they'd implemented. And that person no longer even works here. And although this might seem like an extreme example, there's variations of this at every nonprofit I worked at, where it was a previous development coordinator who implemented something, or maybe it was a previous system that you had that had limitations and you had to do all these workarounds. And so all these sort of inefficient or broken processes just start moving from system to system unless somebody starts going in and questioning these things. So moving into a new system like Salesforce or anything else for that matter is a perfect opportunity to reevaluate your business processes and see what you can fix or optimize before you move it into Salesforce. Moving into this fourth recommendation here, reevaluate and clean your data. Everyone's going to tell you to clean your data, so nothing surprising there. But I also want to say reevaluate. If you have 7 years of scanned checks in your system and you're ready to migrate to Salesforce, you might want to ask yourself, is it really necessary I move that all over? And Salesforce or any cloud-based system does have additional costs as you go over the storage thresholds. So you really want to think to yourself, is it necessary? Can I just archive this somewhere for auditing purposes and leave it at that? So reevaluating the data that you want to bring over. Do I need 18 years of giving history, or maybe just the last 5 years is sufficient? So you want to think to yourself before you have this very complex migration process, what is the most relevant data you need in your system to provide useful information back to you? If it doesn't really meet any of those criteria and it's just data that you want to move over because you have it, you might want to rethink about that. And of course, cleaning your data, especially if you're consolidating from different systems or you have different spreadsheets. You're going to want to ultimately put it in a big spreadsheet and deduplicate and make sure things are standardized. Phone numbers, email addresses, addresses, zip codes, all those are going to be standardized. And if you can't do it, totally understandable. This is where you might want to enlist a consultant where you can hand them your file, excuse me, give them very specific rules of what you want them to do, and they hand you back a file back that's clean. Oftentimes organizations I work with say, well, we're just not going to worry about it. We'll migrate it into the system and then we'll figure it out then. And that always seems like a great idea, but I rarely see anybody go back to clean their data after the fact. And so what that leads to is, you had dirty data in your old system and now you have dirty data in your new system. And this sort of takes away from the trust and reliability of your data, trust in the reporting. People are just happier with their spreadsheets that they know it's accurate. So definitely having clean data and only relevant data is critical as you move into a new system. So we're reaching our midway point here, recommendation 5, and very clear here, start simple. Oftentimes you have a lot of goals that you want to achieve. You have a lot of success criteria that you want to achieve. And oftentimes there's this idea of, well, let's just do it all in one big bang approach. It might seem like it's less costly to do it that way, and you don't want to pull people away from their jobs for multiple phases, so let's just go big. And that's surely an approach. I've participated in many of those, but our recommendation here is to start simple. Especially if you're new to CRM, it's always a good idea to spend like the first phase really just onboarding the system, migrating your necessary data over, handful of configurations to make sure the look and feel is that of your organization, but really hold off on any major changes after that. And then maybe a short phase thereafter, a couple months, you might want to start with some basic integrations, third-party apps, App Exchange, that type of thing. And then maybe you do some more customizations in a third phase. And I'm not talking these phases being years apart. These could be months apart. But the advantage of this is, for one, you're making smarter decisions as you go along. You might have a vision of what you need and can spend thousands and thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars in that first phase. But after you use the system, you have a different understanding of it. So using the system more gives you the ability to think of what's the best thing I need, what's the prioritized thing I need, and then focus on those in small phases thereafter. In the larger scheme of things, it will be more economical. I can't tell you how many times we built huge things because the customer or the consultant wanted to do it that way. Obviously, consultants are incentivized to do it that way. That there's a lot of people there for a long time building this monster project. But then you find out as you start using the system and saying, oh, this is not really what we wanted. Now you're undoing things, which also has a cost to it. So our recommendation is always start simple. The very first phase, get the system up and running, hopefully in a matter of weeks, if not months, and move your data over, just enough configurations that you can run the system operationally, and then start moving into more integrations and customizations over time. All right, so those are our first 5 recommendations. I'm going to just quickly check the chat to see if there's any comments or questions that people have. At the moment, I don't see anything. Give me 1 second here. Okay, so I checked the Q&A, I checked the chat. Looks like we're okay there. No other questions. Again, feel free to drop anything in, but otherwise I'll just keep plugging away. All right, so our 6th recommendation here is to have a change control process in place. And I'd say 9 out of 10 organizations I work with really have not thought through this. So you invest all this time and effort in rolling out this system, and then we're all celebrating, we're all eating cake, we're all happy, the old system is gone, the data's been moved over, we've trained everybody, and then here comes the onslaught of enhancement requests, questions, data problems, bugs, you name it, and there is no process in place to address it. And people start getting frustrated. Oh, I wish we had the old system back, or I'm just gonna use my side spreadsheet until you all have this sorted out. So having a clear change control process in place is ideal. And we can talk more about this, but this is typically like, have a clear mechanism for intake, whether you have some sort of help desk software or even just a shared Google spreadsheet, doesn't matter. Have one place where people can enter all their feedback, have an internal process for how you prioritize these things. There's a break fix or something that is impacting reporting might be one thing, whereas a data issue might be prioritized another way, and an enhancement request might be prioritized another way. And then have a clear schedule, a release management plan on how you plan to address it. Let's say that we will address mission critical issues immediately, we will do data fixes weekly, and we will do enhancements on a monthly basis. Having a clear plan and roadmap for the types of changes, it gives people a lot more patience with the system. But if they just are frustrated and have no visibility to how things or when things are going to get changed, that leads to a lot of frustration and just poor user adoption. So having a clear plan in place, a mechanism for intake, a clear methodology for prioritizing things, and then a roadmap so people know exactly where their fixes are going to come and when they will come is the way I recommend it. All right. Number 7 here, hire or appoint a Salesforce administrator. If you are a larger nonprofit and you have, let's say, I don't know, over 50 users, you have a lot of integrations, you may want to consider a full-time or part-time Salesforce administrator. Someone who can resolve issues, can develop reports, can make configurations, and is constantly looking to see ways to optimize or make the systems more efficient. If you have less users or less integrations, then maybe you don't necessarily need to hire a full-time or part-time Salesforce administrator, but you definitely need someone who's designated to be the person who at least knows the basic functions. Adding users, removing users, creating simple reports, and really has some basic training. That Trailhead module really can walk you through all the key steps to being a Salesforce administrator. But it's always good to have someone identified, someone delegated to really be responsible and on point for anything that might be minor changes or minor enhancements you can make. I know it's not great for my consulting business because we are administrators for several organizations, but I will say that having someone internally who can do some simple functions is, as you have more control over it and more ability to take care of some of those things yourself, you'll be much happier with the system long term. The eighth recommendation here is engaging stakeholders early. And this is where I've seen it not go so well for a lot of large organizations where, the project or the implementation is considered an IT task. And, they're really focusing on, let's get this, let's get a small group of decision makers and let's just roll this out quickly. Yeah, that could be the cheapest approach and the quickest approach. But the last thing you want to do is roll this system out to a group of users who are unhappy with it and say, oh, this is not what we thought we were going to get. They have no input and they're unhappy and they don't use the system. So my recommendation is to engage them early. That doesn't necessarily mean they need to be part of the core project team. They could be. That's always a good approach. But if not, then it's always good to have very early on, have stakeholders engaged, even as early as seeing the sales demos, seeing those out-of-the-box demos, maybe giving them access to a sandbox system right at the get-go. Constantly throughout the process, have visibility to what's being done. On larger implementations, I like to have stakeholders involved in all our development reviews. So, there's familiarity with the system. Their expectations are aligned so that when we go live, there's no surprises. So the more you can engage stakeholders early throughout the process, I'd say at the very beginning, the better. All right. Just a couple more here. Recommendation 9. You knew this slide was going to come up at some point. Training. And I say training as part of a broader change management strategy, but I'll focus more on training here in that it really can't just be a one and done thing a few days before go live. You really need to look at training as very multifaceted, and it should really even begin prior to before the system is rolled out. But you definitely want to have training right before it's rolled out, after it's rolled out. You want to have role-based training, general training, management training, make it as specific to the group of users and the audience that you have. You want to have videos that people can review whenever they want, and not just a video of the training itself that they have to sift through 4 hours to see what exactly they need, but short how-to videos on simple functionality that everyone's going to need. Training documentation on key business processes, and having that training being an ongoing thing. Whenever I've seen the one and done approach, it's just impractical, because oftentimes you're not going to remember how to make a soft credit in the system until you have to do a soft credit. You won't remember how to do a grant payment or to log a grant payment until it's time to do that. And that could be 3, 4, 5 months after training begins. So having videos available, documentation available, and training on a regular basis, even if it's on a monthly basis with a handful of people, it's always a key to invest in long-term training. All right. And to wrap things up, find a trusted partner. All these 9 recommendations can be easy for some nonprofits, and you could be well staffed for that. For others, not so much. It can be very challenging. You all are solving big problems out there in the world, and you don't always have time to focus on the things that I've mentioned in these 9 slides before. So it's always good to have a trusted partner, whether it's someone who's with you from the very beginning, whether it's a consultant that you engage part of the way, or maybe it's something that's ongoing after your implementation's over. It's always good to have a consultant that you could reach out to, who's an expert in this area, who works specifically with nonprofits that you need, and that understands your business and your terminology. You can find consultants through speaking to your Salesforce representative, account executive. You can also go to the App Exchange, and there are ways that you can search for partners. And then, of course, there's us. Here at OneTen, we offer all kinds of services, from helping you decide what the right solution is for you. We do full implementations as well, migrate data, implement the solution, customizing, configuring, reports, so on and so forth. Or let's say you already have a partner that you're working with, and you just need a project manager who can represent your interests as a nonprofit, and we play that role as well, or any other role in a staff augmentation capacity. Or you just need strategic guidance, or point solutions with training and change management. If any of these services are something that you are interested in, by all means, give us a call. We're more than happy to have a no pressure conversation with you to see how you'll learn more about your organization and how we might be able to help. So that's a little bit about us and the 10 recommendations. I would like to open it up to any questions, any comments, any discussion. So I'm gonna I'm a little new on this platform here, so I might need, if you're trying to say something and can't be heard, then please do send a chat to me here. I'm going to first look here at the chat to see if there's any questions. I'm going to look in the Q&A also to see if there's any questions there. Give me 1 second. Okay, I don't see any comments in the chat. I will go to the Q&A section. I don't see any questions in Q&A. So we will open it up if anybody has any comments that they would like to share. And like I said, if for some reason you're speaking and I cannot hear you, then please do put something in the chat. I might need to change a setting for you. All right. Okay, I don't see any comments. I'll give it another 30 seconds here if anybody has any questions or comments, and it's all perfectly fine. If folks just want to listen in and hopefully this was helpful for you, that's fine too, but I'll give it another 30 seconds before we wrap things up. And as I'm doing that, I do have just a slide here that has some information. I would encourage you that to take a look at our blog on our website because it does have some other videos and previous webinars if you want to learn more about finding the right solution for you, where I compare different CRM systems, or you want to see our recommendations on how to use Salesforce for a high-touch giving program or for a grant management program. We have videos and blog posts out there where you can, and it's all free, all available for you, where you can just take a look and get some insight that way. Otherwise, we definitely encourage you to follow us on all the social medias. We try to post regularly on anything, if not Salesforce, other CRM solutions out there, and other content that we think is relevant for nonprofits such as yourselves, and how it integrates with the tech industry. So I do not see any more questions or comments here. So apologies that there wasn't a richer discussion. But I do thank you all again for attending this. I am going to send the video out of this in case you want to share it with some of your colleagues. But again, please do reach out if you would like to schedule a conversation and chat through any of the things that we talked about, or like I said, have some unique situations at your nonprofit that you'd like to discuss and get some thoughts on or some recommendations on. Always happy to have a conversation. So thank you all again for your time and have a great rest of your day.